Pre-Season 8 just came out, and I've been playing a shit ton of Urgot. I love Urgot on this new preseason, and obviously the runes have changed, so I'm here to make an update to my original Urgot guide to talk to you about the Season 8 runes and the other changes that Urgot has gotten over the past few months, like not being able to build Steric's Gauge, and also to correct a couple things that I do not believe anymore from my original Urgot guide. But without further ado, let's begin. So, the new rune page for Urgot. I've tried almost every keystone on Urgot that actually makes sense. I've tried Press the Attack, I've tried Fleeting Footwork, I have tried a lot of things on Urgot, but the best keystone by far is Aftershock. The reason for this is because it gives 20 plus 30% armor and MR for 2.5 seconds after you press E, and then after that it does a bit of damage in an AoE. This is so important on Urgot, since you're gonna use your E whenever you're about to do a major combo. Whenever you're about to get your full rotation of legs, you always have to go in with E, do a W, maybe a Q somewhere in there. So you'll always proc Aftershock in every trade you do, and it will give you a huge advantage in 1v1 scenarios and outside of 1v1s when you engage team fights late game and you're super tanky and that Aftershock buff comes on. You're just gonna increase your defense by like a third, and it's going to be insane. It makes you basically unkillable, since the new item path for Urgot is very, very, very tank based. And for those of you who are worried about the loss of damage from his second best keystone, Press the Attack, there is some valid concern there, but honestly, Aftershock gives almost as much damage, maybe about half as much damage, or about 75% of the normal damage you would do throughout the game. With Press the Attack, I usually have over 1000 damage with Aftershock at the end of every game. And as for the tree and losing out its benefits, you're only going to be missing out on 18% attack speed from using that tree, which is pretty useful on Urgot for last hitting, but isn't really required. It's more of just a crutch if you're not super good at Urgot last hitting. And I think the health from the resolve tree is much more beneficial to Urgot in the long term, especially if you don't want those crutches and want to learn how to play Urgot to the most optimal he can be played. But with that out of the way, let's now talk about the items. Since the original video, I've changed my optimal build for Urgot a lot. One of the major things that I regret saying in the video is putting such a big emphasis on Ghost. I honestly forgot about Righteous Glory. I mentioned Righteous Glory in the video, but I didn't really test it out or think about it because historically Righteous Glory has been kind of a shit item. But now Righteous Glory has been buffed, and the active on it basically replaces Ghost entirely from my original video, and it also replaces the mana runes I suggested in my original video, because now you have a consistent mana item to get on Urgot, which is Righteous Glory. So the build path for Urgot right now is first back, get Boots, Cull, and a Sapphire Crystal. Then after that, you just want to focus on rushing your Black Cleaver, and then after that, you can go for your Righteous Glory, and the rest of your items, Frozen Mallet, just pure tank items, maybe a GA in there. Also, if you're having difficulty in lane versus an AD opponent, it might be beneficial to get Glacial Shroud before finishing Black Cleaver, but it's really up to you and just how you see fit in the situation given to you. Now, some of you may be wondering, why is Righteous Glory such an important item on Urgot? Well, it's because after you're done with your lane and you start roaming around, the Righteous Glory active is super, super, super important outside of laning phase. Is going to be your main engage. And another cool thing with Urgot now is that with Aftershock and Righteous Glory combined, he can be the main engage tool for team fights. So you don't have to rely on having like a Zac or like Alistar or whatever on your team. It's good to have those on your team, but you can be the main initiation as Urgot, which is a high damage dealing champion and a high tank champion with engage. It's absolutely insane. I think it's actually kind of busted in a way. You just press Righteous Glory, run into a team of 4 to 5 people, press E, Aftershock procs, you are pretty tanky, everyone can follow up because you just stunned an important target, hopefully an important target, or even if you stun a tank, you can still burst them down with the max % damage on your legs. Also, something I mentioned in the last video is that the max percent health doesn't scale off AD. So you can build very tanky and still retain a lot of your damage. Well, recently with Urgot, they changed his passive to where it has a much lower cooldown. It's weaker early game, so you're gonna have some weaknesses early game, but late game, once you hit level 13, you have 2.5 second cooldown on each leg. That means basically after you do a full rotation, another full rotation will be ready again, so you can get constant shotgun knees off if you do it correctly. This is so great. You can basically just build Black Cleaver with the Black Cleaver passive to help amplify the max percent health damage, and build full tank and still do insane damage. Honestly, in all the Urgot games I've played so far this preseason, and I've played a lot, I've played like over 20. I climbed from Plat 5 to Plat 3 in 2 days. This Urgot's absolutely insane right now with this build, but because of this new passive, you can go almost full defensive in runes and in items besides Black Cleaver, which is already a pretty defensive item to begin with because it has health, and completely demolish. And the only other AD item I usually get outside of Black Cleaver is GA, just to ensure that I stay alive even longer. But basically, my build is Righteous Glory, Black Cleaver, a shit ton of tank items, and maybe a GA if you get ahead. And that's it, and it's pretty awesome. Now, to get into the rest of the runes, because I've only talked about the awesomeness of Aftershock. So first up, I take Demolish. The reason I love Demolish so much is that it does so much extra damage to towers. Doing damage to towers is the goal of the game. You need to do damage to towers to destroy the Nexus, so I find it very useful on Urgot, especially since he's the type of champion that you can split push pretty easily with if you get ahead. The other option that is viable is also Unflinching. Personally, I don't like it that much because I take TP. Usually, like, for half of the game, TP is off of cooldown just because it's more of like a situational spell that you want to use at the right time rather than use it whenever it's up. I feel like Unflinching is much better for summoner spells that use whenever it's up, kind of like Smite on junglers or like Ignite. I think Unflinching works a lot better with those summoner spells because you get the 10% tenacity when a summoner spell is on cooldown. TP isn't on cooldown a lot, so you don't get as much tenacity, and I just think Demolish is overall better to my personal playstyle. For the next row, I like to take Conditioning just because I prefer the long-term effects of it a lot better. Maybe in some tough matchups you'd want to take Iron Skin or Mirror Shell, but for me personally, I always just like Conditioning just because after 10 minutes is just stronger in every way, and you don't really have a lot of armor or MR early game, and it's based off of percentage, so I think Conditioning just works a lot better, especially combined with Aftershock specifically. And then for the final row, I take either Overgrowth or Second Wind. Recently, I've been taking Overgrowth because I just prefer it, but Second Wind I've tried a lot before, and it works very well for if you're getting poked down in lane and just surviving in general, and Overgrowth is just better for the late to mid game, so it really just depends on what you're trying to do. If you're playing Urgot for like the first time, still trying to learn him and get a handle of how he is in laning phase, I would recommend Second Wind. You're not really losing too much by going Second Wind over Overgrowth, but if you are accustomed to Urgot in laning phase and you know how to survive, I think that Overgrowth is overall the better option. And now for the secondary tree. So the secondary tree is really down to personal preference. I don't really think there's a definitive best 2 runes or best tree to go down. I think some are better than others, but I would recommend taking everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt because this new rune system is very flexible. A lot of these runes are just based off personal playstyle and what's best for how you prefer to play champions. So let's start off with Precision. This is the secondary tree that I've been personally going a lot right now. I might change my mind in the future, but right now I think these 2 runes that I'm about to say are the best for secondary tree on Urgot. Triumph and Legend Tenacity. Triumph is very good. It heals 15% of your missing health on a kill or an assist. Very useful on Urgot, very useful on any tank because it's going to take a percentage of your health pool. You're going to have a lot of health. That's a lot of healing. And just Urgot as a champion, you're gonna be going super ham, overstaying your welcome, disrespecting the enemy with your resistances from Aftershock, your shield from W. So if you're really low, and then you get that kill with Triumph and heal off it, it feels so nice. You can snowball so nicely off the heal from Triumph, so I think it's a very important rune on Urgot. Legend Tenacity, pretty self-explanatory. The best out of the second rows in Precision. It just helps Urgot a lot with catching up and not getting slowed or CC'd. Now the next one is Sorcery. I've used this tree a lot for my first 20 or so games as Urgot in this new preseason, just because a mana flow band helps so much in lane if you're using your spells a lot, but I don't think it's 100% necessary on Urgot, which is why I don't use it anymore. If you're good at mana management and you don't spam your spells too much, I don't think you really need mana flow band, but I do think if you're trying to get a hang of Urgot in lane and how he really works, I think this is a great beginner path. Mana flow band is definitely the best rune from the first row. You could also take Nullifying Orb if you're versus an AP opponent. I'm not a huge fan of Ultimate Hat just because at rank 3 Ultimate you already have a very low cooldown on it, so the percentage of CDR isn't gonna benefit it too much, but it's not bad. Now the next rune I would go in this page is Scorch. Scorch is so nice on Urgot because your shotgun knees actually proc Scorch, so you'll be able to proc it a lot if you're just harassing in general, and it does a great amount of early game damage. Gathering Storm isn't super useful just because Urgot doesn't scale super heavily off AD as much as another champion would, and games aren't guaranteed to go into super late. As for Domination and Inspiration, I don't really think there's any specific runes in those trees that are so good on Urgot that you'd want to take it over Precision, Sorcery, or Resolve. But I do think those paths have a lot of universally good runes that are good on Urgot as well as a lot of other champions. And if you have a personal preference to a certain rune and you've grown accustomed to it, I would recommend trying it on Urgot because most likely it will work on Urgot as well, even if it doesn't specifically suit some of his abilities and some of the ways you play him as much as the other runes in those other trees that I mentioned. But I'll always encourage experimentation because even though I think what I've shown to you guys is the best runes for Urgot, I do think there's always the potential that a new strategy can be found that utilizes a specific rune, or a certain rune is better because of a certain item that I didn't think of, or something like that, because I'm not always right. This is just a guideline of how to play Urgot and what I think is the best on Urgot right now, and obviously it's going to change over time. I always encourage experimentation in terms of itemization and rune paths. With this new rune system, it's all about personal preference and experimentation. I love this new rune system just because of all the variety it gives. So if you're more of a Glacial Augment player, if you're more of a Press the Attack player, I definitely encourage you to go those runes instead if the Aftershock playstyle doesn't suit you. But that's just what I do, and that's what's been working for me, and I've been climbing a lot with this new Urgot. So I do highly recommend following this guide to start out with Urgot and then later developing your own playstyle to Urgot and maybe altering some items or altering some runes based off what you like to play. But that's about it for this Urgot guide. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to know more about Urgot than what I've already explained here and you haven't watched my first Urgot guide, be sure to check that out because I go into detail about how to use the abilities on him. And even though some of the item paths are outdated, I updated them here, so just keep this video in mind while watching that older Urgot guide. If you've already seen that, I have a great video that I just made on how I'd rework Mordekaiser. I am a very big Mordekaiser player. It's my second highest mastery champion with about 280k mastery, and I have a lot of cool ideas about how Riot could rework him, so I highly recommend you check out that video. And if you've seen that video already or you're not interested in Mordekaiser, I have one more video for you guys. It's about reworks and how they impact the champion's kit, and if we're losing some of the identity of the pre-rework champion with reworks. And it also gives some of my opinion on what I think about this new Urgot compared to old Urgot, because as many of you guys know, I played a lot more old Urgot than I have new Urgot. I think I have about 380k mastery worth of old Urgot and then like 70k mastery worth of new Urgot plus PvE time. So pretty great video. I definitely recommend checking it out. If you like these type of videos, be sure to like and subscribe so I know that you like these type of videos, because I like making them and I have a lot more ideas coming for future videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.